Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. It's almost Friday, getting closer to the weekend. Hope everybody is having a great week so far. My name is Kathleen Keneally. I'm the Director of Financial Planning at Boston Private, now Silicon Valley Bank. And I am pleased to welcome you all here for the third part of our four-part Social Security series. We are so grateful and honored to have Marcia Mantell here to share her expertise with us yet again. And we're really happy to see how many people have found interest in this series and are joining us. So much appreciated to have you all here today. I'll keep it really brief and I'll turn it over to Marcia because I know she's got a lot of material to get through, but just a reminder, if you have some questions, you can put them in the chat. This will be an interactive session, so hopefully you were able to receive the handouts, the slides. The handouts have been posted in the chat, so you hopefully are able to access those and download them. And just a reminder, CE is available for those of you that stick around for the live session, and please make sure to fill out the survey at the end that will be going around. And with that, I will turn it over to Marcia.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I am delighted to be back here with the FPA of New England, and welcome everybody. Thanks for coming back. Yes, please put your questions in the chat or the Q&A. We'll take them either place. And as you saw from session 2, when we send out the answer key, I'll also answer your questions, at least to the best of my ability. And I'll let you know if there's something that I can't answer for you, but feel free to submit what you need to know about. So today we are going to continue our workshop on Social Security for financial professionals, claiming categories. We're up to the divorce cases, calculations, and client cases. Those of you who have been along for the ride so far, we first did dispelling myths and misinformation and laying the framework and the foundation for what the calculations are all about in the first session. So for all workers. And then session 2, we talked about the married couples and had a lot of good questions come in about being married. And today we're no longer married. Today we're going to talk about the divorced situation. And for the folks who came on a little bit early, I gave them a little teaser. Just the other day, I got an email out of the clear blue from a woman who is divorced after 26 years. And she had some questions about her pension plan and how it would work relative to Social Security. She's a state teacher, our teacher in the state system that is an uncovered situation, but she was thinking she was going to get a big chunk of her ex's as a spousal benefit, his benefit as her spousal benefit. So once again, I got to be the bearer of bad news on that because GPO applies and she has much too lucrative a pension to end up getting any ex-spousal benefit. But her email was very funny. And this is, divorce, it can be a very sensitive topic with your clients, or it can be a grand celebration. And, you kind of have to let the clients take the lead here. In her case, it was a grand celebration. Apparently it was really good to get divorced after 26 years. And she was putting big, cheering marks and bold and exclamation points in her email. And she said she was not going to die before him because she's getting every last dollar she's owed. So those emails come my way from time to time. You know your clients better on a one-on-one basis. So I don't know if you're going to any divorce parties, but it can go either way. But I just thought I'd share that with you. The timing was kind of funny. So today, it's all about the divorce court and what is going on when couples, just have to end the marriage. You're going to see things that are very similar to had they stayed married, and yet really important pieces that makes it different from if they had stayed married. So today, just looking back, refresh, reset here. Social Security has its own special language. And all of these, I think you're noticing, all of the same language applies, whether you're a worker, a spouse, or now an ex-spouse. We still have FRAs that are the anchor to the calculation. Then Amy is still calculated. If you have a state pension or a union pension or something that's uncovered, meaning you haven't also paid into Social Security for that pension amount or in that job, WEP and GPO will apply. So all of the language stays consistent. What is different, is that the rules start to change. So even though the rules are still crazy, now today we're going to focus on retirement benefits, but as a divorced person, but they're still kind of spousal benefits, and GPO will still apply even in a divorce situation. So you're going to see some things that are similar and some things that are different. One thing that is not different, the client's statement. And with divorced individuals, this becomes a really, really critical tool, because you're going to need to see whether you're dealing with an ex-husband or an ex-wife, you're dealing with one individual now, but that individual may get to claim something on someone they might not be talking to anymore. So you need the client's statement, and then it's going to be up to the client to get some information from the ex, some guesses about how much the ex's PIA might be, or for the current client, your client, to call Social Security. They're not good at Social Security about giving you forward-looking information. So Dan Mantell, if you're on the line, I'm sorry, we're going to be divorced for a couple minutes here. But if Dan and I were divorced, for example, and I call Social Security to say, okay, so how much is Dan's expected PIA? Social Security really doesn't like to share that information, even if I have my Social Security number and his and my divorce decree handy and all of that, because that's not really what they do. When I go to claim, then they'll tell me. So it's going to be a little tricky in some cases, whether or not your client can get the information on his or her ex. So just keep that in mind. You still want that statement. You still want the earnings record for your client, and hope that they have a pretty good sense of what their ex was earning, has continued to earn over the years. And then is there any subjection to a pension? If he's a police officer, it's going to be different than if he was working for Goldman Sachs forever. So just a few notes there. And also for you all, have you all gone to ssa.gov and downloaded your current statement? Your 2021 wages and all of your earnings history is in there and updated now that we're past the end of January. So put in the chat for me, yes, if you've already gone in and made sure your account is secure and you're getting your statement. So I hope we've got 65 people online. I'd like to see 65 yeses. And again, here's where you get the earnings history. Thank you for those of you putting things in the chat. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I think I saw a no in there. All right, well, you have till the end of today. Yep, okay. Excellent. So yeah, it's important that you guys, have your own Social Security statements handy and know what's going on. Okay, well, we've got a couple no's. Thank you for being honest. Yes, you are right, John. Being retired and collecting this information is different. Once you're retired, once you hit your full retirement age, the statement looks different. Excuse me. So you won't necessarily get all the information once you're in the thick of things, but still knowing, that this is a planning tool and your clients are getting the statement every year and you're keeping up with it is a really good practice. Again, on the My Social Security page, right on the home page of My Social Security, once you log in, it's below these bars, your eligibility and earnings bars. Did you earn your 40 quarters? That's where you review your full earnings record now. Click on that and you'll get the full every year for the decades and decades that clients worked or you worked. All right, so our claiming categories, again, there are only 4. We talked about the individual worker and the spouse. This session is ex-spousal benefits. And again, we're going to look at multiple situations with the ex-spouse. The ex-spouse may or may not have their own individual worker history that can be used for Social Security. and they may or may not be able to claim as an X. So that's what we're going to explore. And keep in mind, again, they can only get one benefit at a time. So it's either going to be theirs or it will be their ex-spousal benefit. And as reminders, these are included in your formula sheet, just to remember the reduction and how it's calculated. The workers' reductions are calculated differently from the spousal and ex-spousal reductions. But I wanted to just bring something up. I thought this was a super interesting question one of you provided last time. The way I laid out the graphic here, there was a little bit of confusion about when to use the 5/9 of 1% reduction and when to use the 5/12. So I thought I'd try something different. You have to work both forwards and backwards when it comes to this calculation, and the reduction formula is the way I look at it. So we're looking and talking about between 62 and 67, right? Between the earliest age you can claim and your full retirement age, or a client's full retirement age. So you have to start with the FRA and you work backwards. How many months before FRA is the client wishing to claim if they want to claim early? So if he's claiming, 12 months early, it's between, and we'll use 67 as our anchored FRA. So 67, so that'd be 66, and then 24 months early would be 65, and so forth. So if you go all the way back, from the anchor backwards, you got up to 60 months to claim early. That's data point one, working backwards. Then to do the calculation, you're still working it forward as if we didn't have these two parts to the law. So in that case, once you know he or she is claiming 60 months early, you first start with the 5/9 of 1% reduction for any of the first 36 months early. And then you use the 5/12 of 1% to reduce anything after. So someone who is retiring 24 months early, if you look at the bottom layer here, 24 months early going backwards you might think be in the 5/12 range, but it's not, because it's really still from 62 to 64 is when this person is claiming. So it is working it frontwards and backwards, but the formula always works however many months up to 36 that they're claiming early. It's 5/9 of 1%. I hope that helps. If not, send me a note. Waiting to claim 8% per year. I think we're all good on that. So now the ex-spousal benefit. The ex-spouse may in fact be eligible for some benefit, and I'm going to use she and he, and no, they're all interchangeable. At this point, Social Security is gender agnostic. It applies to same-sex married couples or opposite sex couples. So we've got the rule is that an ex-spouse can be eligible for up to 50% of the higher earner's PIA. And that's only once the lower earner reaches their own FRA. Okay, so this is the same exact maximum amount a spouse is eligible for. Okay, but now as an ex-spouse, also eligible for 50% of his PIA, not 50% of the amount that the higher X is receiving or when he claims. So just keep that in mind. And also remember the golden rule that your lower earning spouse, if they have anything of their own PIA, that record gets paid out first, then they get the additional spousal top up. So you never lose, even if you didn't make as much as your ex, you never lose what you've earned, but you'd have to have earned wages that were covered and have at least 40 credits in order to be eligible on your own. If you are a dependent spouse, you just get 50% of the higher earners because you don't have any lower earner benefit. You just have half of his. Notes here, the only time the lower earner gets the full 50%, remember that lower earner has to be at their own FRA. And once a lower earner claims their benefit, they're deemed to have filed for all benefits. So that speaks to this piece on the right, the lower earner benefit is paid first, and then additional spousal benefits are topped up. You can't split these anymore. That's the old restricted application and file and suspend and all of that. That's all gone. So for the ex-spouse who's eligible to claim on the X, the higher earning X, the lower earner's benefit is paid out and her ex-spousal benefit becomes available at that exact same time. So they are calculated separately, but paid together. Now the reduction on the ex-spouse's spousal benefit is different from the worker benefit. So they still lock in a permanent reduction to monthly income if they're claiming early. And it's a different calculation, 25/36 of the first 1% or 25% over the total first 30 months of claiming and an additional 10%. And that just looks like this. But again, keep in mind that you're going to still, this is how the law originated, is what was going on, is what I was showing here. But the calculation is still the first 36 months are reduced 25/36 of 1%. Here's the big difference between ex-spousal benefits and spousal benefits. When you are an ex, in addition to having to be the lower earner, which is the same, the key is that you had to have had a marriage that lasted 10 consecutive years or longer before anything else matters. If you got married at 22 and divorced at 28, that is not a 10-year marriage. So nothing applies. It just doesn't go no further. You know, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You have to jump over this first hurdle before any of the other rules matter. So you're married 10 consecutive years or longer. You've been divorced for 2 years, at least 2 years, or your ex is already claiming. So this is really for an older couple for the most part. If the ex was already claiming benefits, you do not have to wait the 2 years. Your client, the one that you're working with to figure out divorced spouse benefits, that client has not remarried. Both the client and the ex must reach at least age 62, but the ex doesn't have to be claiming. So you'll remember with the spousal rules, before Sally could get any spousal top up, Richard had to be claiming, but not so with the divorces. There are some things that are still connected a bit, like each has to be eligible to receive. So they've tied that together. Each has to reach at least age 62, but that's as close. It's a loose connection rather than, you know, joined at the hip. So each, the client and the ex have to reach 62. And these rules, you know, cascade down. 10 years or more, divorced for 2 years or more, client has not remarried, they're both at least 62. And then the benefit has to yield a higher dollar amount. Otherwise, there's no ex-spousal benefit. The reason I bring this up is it is funny. It's not usually, it's always the ex-husbands who feel cheated, that they're not getting a benefit. They're thinking they could get something on her. And this is what I'm saying. It's sensitive with divorce. They're really mad. It's like, well, you know, she's going to get to claim on me, but I don't get to claim anything on her. But go back to what the spousal rules are. And it's really all about who's the higher earner and who's the lower earner between the members of the couple. And now it's just because they're divorced, doesn't mean he was going to be entitled to anything extra on her. So just a little note, and that's why, you know, it's all about getting the maximum you are entitled to and how the calculations work either in your favor or you just get your worker benefit. And a note again, all these ex-spousal rules apply to all legally married couples, same sex or opposite sex, does not matter. If you got divorced and you meet these rules, there you go. And the 10-year is the first gate. Also important to note, there is no conversation that needs to happen between the exes. You know, the lower spouse is not asking the higher spouse for permission. There's no negotiation over who's going to get what, you know, no, and no. This can be, and especially if there was a very cantankerous divorce. This is a case where you're not going to ask your client to go and talk to his or her ex about what their PIA is. Like, you just don't go there. You can figure it out close enough to know whether you think he or she will get a spousal top up or not. But any of these conversations are strictly between your client and the SSA, and manage your client's expectations that they will have to show proof. You cannot claim an ex-spousal benefit online. You can get spousal benefits, but I don't think you can get ex-spousal, though they're working on it. And you have to show proof, mainly the divorce decree, because the 10-year mark is really the important piece. The other important thing is divorce decrees cannot reduce or eliminate an ex-spouse's Social Security benefit on the higher earner, even if it was written into the divorce decree. And this happens more often than you'd think. It's a nasty legal tactic. It is not enforceable, but it does mean that some ex-wives think that they're not entitled to any claim for Social Security, and that is just not the case. So if you run into this situation, immediately have your client get in touch with Social Security so they can review that divorce decree. They will tell her that it's null and void, it's just noise, ignore it, and she is in fact entitled to up to 50% of the ex's PIA if she waits till full retirement age. The other big question that always comes up is, well, what if my ex has remarried? And so you're sitting there as the advisor looking at, we'll go with Sally. Sally says, well, Richard remarried. What I always want to say is, so, but that's not an appropriate answer. But it's the right idea. Doesn't matter what the ex is doing. The only thing that's going to happen between these ex-spouses in regards to Social Security and claiming is they each have to be 62. So if Richard remarried, good for Richard, hope he's happy. The client is still entitled to ex-spousal benefits on sometimes the first spouse. We'll go with the first spouse. There's no implication to the ex's benefit. It doesn't get reduced. That's a big point of confusion. There's no reduction. These are all calculated benefits. And the only time someone gets a reduced benefit is if that individual claims early. So there's no, oh, he's penalized because his ex-wife is going to claim on him. No. The new spouse is also entitled to spousal benefits if she's, if she doesn't have a work record or spousal top-up. It's just that two people or more are claiming on the same original record. And before everybody gets hot and bothered about that, that's already built into all the equations and all the math in Social Security and why the payouts work the way they do. There's a certain amount of divorce expected every year. There's a certain amount of exes who are going to claim, all built in. So Social Security already knows this. And we don't leave, the goal, going back again to the 1930s, the goal is to not impoverish any individual. So a marriage didn't work out. It happens. But the end result of that is not going to be, well, we're going to have her on the street or have him on the street. That's not how it works. So these are all calculations. No one loses anything. It's just the regular calculations with certain rules around it. If there were several marriages, which often happens, I usually talk about Johnny Carson, all eligible exes can claim on the same worker's record. And that is the Johnny Carson case. He had 4 spouses. He was married to the first spouse for more than 10, the second spouse for more than 10, the third spouse for only 9. And then he was currently married when he died. So 3 women are going to claim ex-spousal and a spousal benefit on Johnny's work record. And they will all get half of whatever his PIA was, so long as they wait till their FRA. Again, built into the back end. Okay, so some examples. Let's say we have a dependent ex-spouse. So one ex-spouse was a dependent spouse while they were together. This is the at-home mom. right? And she didn't earn 40 credits. So Richard and Sally, Richard has a $2,000 PIA. So if Sally claims at her full retirement age, she gets half of the $2,000 or $1,000. But what if Richard claims at 70? Well, her ex-spousal benefit at her full retirement age is still $1,000. She doesn't get any delayed retirement credits. If Richard claims early, but Sally waits till FRA, $1,000. The only time Sally's benefit would be reduced is if she claims early. The other big thing to note here, unlike with the married couples, it doesn't matter if Richard is claiming his own benefit or when he claims. It's just they each have to be 62. So Sally has to wait until she's 62 before she can claim anything. And if she waits till her FRA, it's $1,000. So the bottom line is we don't care what Richard's doing. You just need to know what his PIA is. And then you can figure out what Sally's benefits are. And as a dependent spouse, half of his. So now in the case where each has their own work record, but Richard was the higher earner. Okay, so his benefit is higher. So he will not get an ex-spousal benefit. So even though they meet all the rules, married 10 years or longer, divorced for more than 2, etc. When Sally reaches her full retirement age, her own PIA is $800. Her maximum ex-spousal benefit is $1,000. So she's going to get her $800 plus a $200 top up. Same as if they had stayed married. Claiming at 70 does the same thing. Her own PIA is the benefit that has delayed retirement credits that apply. So she jumps up to the $992. And essentially there's no spousal or ex-spousal top up. It's $8 because she's almost at half of his by waiting till 70. Now, where I confused some of you last time with the spousal benefit, let's talk about the early claim. There are comparison calculations that happen in the background. So the first thing, when you have your own benefit and you want to claim early, and you might get an ex-spousal benefit, you have to look at each component part, and then calculation is on each component part. So the first marker, I call it, is Sally's own PIA. If she claims at 62, her $800 gets reduced to $560. And that would be that 5/9 of 1%, et cetera. Her ex-spousal benefit, $1,000, would get reduced. So if she were dependent spouse, that whole $1,000 would get reduced 35%, and it's $650. But then you have to take each component part. So if she claims at 62, you're going to reduce her PIA first, and then you would reduce her top up. You reduce the $200. So she's going to get a reduced from $800 to $560, and then the top up gets reduced as a spousal top up from $200 to $130. And that's how come we get a number that's bigger than either of these two markers, because you have to always work those component parts separately. So just wanted to try and clarify that. And Sally, once she claims, she's deemed to have filed for both. So again, she gets both packaged together, but all delivered at one time. There's no splitting up of the parts. Now you might remember Zach and Bob from last session. Here is a case where neither ex-spouse will be eligible for an ex-spousal benefit. They each have sufficiently high PIAs, meaning each one gets on their own work record more than half of the others. So now basically you just have two individuals. And that's an important thing to know as an advisor, right? You're working with this individual, you're working with Bob, let's say, and Bob's PIA is lower than Zach's, that somehow Bob is going to know that. But half of Zach's PIA, $1,600, is less than Bob's actual work earnings and his own PIA. So, you know, Bob's own PIA, more than 50% of X's Zach's. And it doesn't matter what either of them does in terms of claiming. But remember, they each have to reach 62 before either can claim. So when Bob is 62, Zach is only going to be 59. So that's great that Bob is 62, but he still can't claim anything if he had a spousal benefit available. So they're just two independent people using their own work records. It's a straight on, like as if they had not been married. So here I just put together a couple of timelines so you can see, you know, the younger ex-spouse is the one who's going to be available or eligible for ex-spousal benefits. And this is a challenge. This is where I run into most of the problems. Well, once I settle down the ex-husband, that his benefit will still be what he thinks it is. The younger spouse has to wait, and that is tough. But the older spouse also would have to wait to claim any kind of other benefits. So what we've got is a 64-year-old, they can claim their own worker benefit, but the 60-year-old can't claim any benefit yet. But the 62-year-old can now claim ex-spousal benefit. Here, it'd be reduced or wait until 67 to get their maximum benefit. In these years, especially if it's a very low earning ex-spouse, who's the younger one, you know, she really needed that 50% of hits, and waiting all the way till 67 can be a struggle. So sometimes it's more art than science, is what I would say. In the case where the older ex-spouse is the one who's going to be eligible for benefits. So here the ex is 62, but the younger spouse is 56. There's no claiming. The 62-year-old cannot get any ex-spousal benefits. Turns out all the way until 68, because this age gap between the exes makes a difference. That's probably the hardest one that I come across, where the older spouse, and with these big gaps, you know, a year difference, it's annoying, but it's not critical. When you get these spouses who have lots of years between them, it takes a while until both reach age 62 before either can claim an ex-spousal benefit. So just keep that in mind. So now let's get out papers, pens, calculators, because we're going to talk about Sally and Richard and having a situation. All right, so you remember Sally and Richard from last time. Sally Snowflake, my superhero, and her husband, Richard Rain. Well, their marriage didn't make it. The marriage ended in divorce after 35 years and 4 children. Richard remarried, and he's married to Marianne 6 months after Sally and Richard's divorce was final. And it's a second marriage for both. Sally started working part-time since the divorce, adding a few more credits to her earlier record. But you can see she still didn't earn enough. She's only got 30 credits, so she's still a dependent ex-spouse. But now she wants to stop anyway and move to be near her grandchildren. So what I'd like you to solve for is Sally wants to know what her options are for her Social Security benefit. If she claims now in February, how much will she receive? If she claims that her FRA, if she waits all the way till 66, how much will she receive? And she's heard that she's going to get a higher benefit at 70. So is that a strategy she should look at? So in your packets, in your formula sheets and packets, you have the divorce client worksheet here. So solve for these 3 items with Sally, and I'll leave this page up so you can see the data. So we're just worried about Sally and Richard. We don't worry about Marianne yet. So what should Sally do? Should she claim in February, like right now? Should she claim later at full retirement age or at 70? So let me give you a couple of minutes here to sort through that. Meanwhile, I'll look at the chat and see if there's anything I can help you out with. They were divorced for 2 years. Oh, sorry. Assume they meet all the rules. Excellent point. And yes, we have some who figured out very quickly the answer. That's a hint. Don't look in the chat though. And I want to address one thing in the chat. Karen asks, if there are several ex-spouses, you were married to each over 10 years, can you pick which one you will take benefits on? The answer is, while you technically don't pick, Social Security will do it for you, but yes, they will deliver to you on the spouse that yields the highest monthly benefit for you. Very good question. Okay, I'm going to give you the answer now, because if you've been listening, the answer is the same in all cases. If Sally claims that her FRA, she's already well past her FRA. So it was $1,600. The most she can get is half of his, $1,600. And she actually should have claimed back in November of 2020. However, in that case, which is why I loved your question, I think Harry or Henry who asked, however, the divorce may not have been final yet for 2 years, and Richard wasn't claiming already, so she had no way in and had to wait the full 2 years. We don't know. On the left, if she claims right now, February, $1,600 because they're each 62. And that was really the key here. Sally, in fact, will be 67 in 3 months. She's entitled to half of his, so $1,600. And oh, good God, don't let her wait till 70. Her maximum ex-spousal benefit is 50% of his at her full retirement age. Delayed retirement credits do not apply. So thank you to those of you who played along quickly and got $1,600. So in your answer key, I will send you those notes typed up so you can read them. All right, so now let's look at what's going to happen with Richard and Marianne, because as I mentioned to you, these are real situations. It's not Richard and Marianne, but this really is the conversation I have with the ex-husbands. You know, Richard hears his ex-wife is going to claim on his benefit and he is not happy about it. He wants Marianne to be able to claim as his spouse, but she's younger than Sally. So now Sally's going to scoop up Marianne's benefit. Those are words used. Richard thinks he's going to lose half of his, and now Marianne's going to get, you know, short shrifted as well. So let's assume that Richard's going to claim at FRA. So how much is he going to get? How much of a reduction will he take due to Sally's ex-spousal claim? Then solve for Richard and Marianne want to retire at the same time and immediately start claiming Social Security at Richard's FRA. How much of Richard's benefit will she be entitled to? How much will Marianne be able to collect from her first husband? Remember, this is also a second marriage for her, and assume all qualifying rules are met. And the third thing, don't worry, this is all written down. How much will she, Marianne, be eligible to collect from her own work record? So let's pick this apart in a couple of buckets. Start with, if Richard claims at FRA, Sally already claimed on him, how much will he receive versus how much will Sally be collecting? And then how much will Richard's benefit be cut? So do that piece first, and I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. You're welcome to put things in the chat if you'd like. Okay, we're going to give you the answers here because this is just a straight on write them in. If Richard claims at FRA, he gets his estimated benefit, which I've given you as $3,200. Sally, kind of like, who cares? Sally gets her half of his, $1,600. There's just no connection between these X's. They're just two calculated values. Richard gets his, Sally gets hers. They live happily ever after, never seeing each other again. So how much does he lose? Nothing. It's that her claim makes no difference on his. There is no reduction. And this is a kind of a disbelief as well to these poor guys who thought they were going to have to lose some benefits. They're losing nothing. So now let's go look at Mary Ann. And I approached this with how will Mary Ann's benefit be constructed? So first, let's figure out how much of Richard's benefit is she entitled to? How much of her ex's benefit is she entitled to? Assume he is alive and they meet all the same rules for eligible divorces. And what will she collect if she claims at the same time as Richard in November of this year? And again, I'm just going to give you a minute on this. Oh, yes, back a slide. There you go. Sorry. Okay, let's look at Mary Ann. Again, her spousal benefit, her ex-spousal benefit, and her worker benefit if she claims in November. Well, in Mary Ann's case, she would be entitled to, and it's a calculation, we don't know if she's eligible yet, but entitled to $1,600, half of his, at her full retirement age. That's her spousal benefit. How much is her ex's is she entitled to? Absolutely nothing. She's married. She is also divorced, but one trumps the other. Being married is spousal rule lane. Being divorced is ex-spousal rules. When you're both married and have a qualifying divorce, you're still married. So her only potential claim is as a current spouse on Richard. And how much will she collect if she claims with Richard? Well, nothing, because I hope you don't think this is too much of a trick question. It's all about her birthday. She's just going to be 59 in 2 months this November. So she's much too young to claim anything. She's not 62, which is the earliest age she can claim any kind of retirement benefit. So those are things to look for, because sometimes it's interesting working with clients when they'll ask you, it seems like a super complicated question and scenario, and it turns out you just had to look at their birth dates. So don't forget the small things when you're dealing with clients and their long and drawn out scenarios and sagas. All right, so that will be coming your way. So now the last piece that we needed to figure out was what does happen for Mary Ann? What will her best options be when she is eligible to claim? So if she claims at 62, if she claims at FRA, and if she claims at 70. So what I want you to do, this will take a little bit more time. What will her own benefit be? Because she is working. I'll go back to that slide in a second. So she's working versus a spousal benefit. Where's she going to get the most? Because once she claims, she only gets one benefit and it's the maximum. So again, her date of birth, 1963, her FRA is 67. She is fully qualified as an independent worker with her 40 credits, and her PIA is $2,400. So take a couple of minutes and get as far as you can on these calculations. We'll do just one more minute and then we'll start walking through Mary Ann. Okay, you ready to start revealing some Mary Ann info? It's going to be very funny on the recording that people are going to sit and hopefully they'll be calculating anyway, but this dead silence. All right, here is one of the most important things I think I can give you as a tip when you're dealing with Social Security. You know, we think about things in terms of years, so 62, then FRA, then 70, because that's the natural progression in age. But the calculation always starts at FRA. So I hope you remembered that tip from last time, and maybe even the time before, and started in the middle. You already know her FRA stuff. So I already told you in the example that in 2030, she reaches her full retirement age, $2,400. And at FRAs, that's the when she gets her maximum spousal benefit, half of Richard's. So we're looking at $2,400 from her own benefit and $1,600 from Richard. So that's where to start. Then you can go either side. I ended up going younger first. If she claimed early, since we already knew that, you know, they wanted to retire early and so forth. Well, if she claims at 62, the year is 2025. So 5 years early, the full 30% reduction, permanent reduction, her $2,400 is reduced to $1,680. Her spousal benefit also would get reduced, but 35% instead of 30. And remember this, I call it a reference calculation. It's not necessarily that she's going to get this, but you want that comparison to know, does she do better on her own record? And you put that into the retirement income plan, or will she do better as a spouse? So here, she's a 35% reduction. So the $1,600 gets reduced 35%, all the way down to just over $1,000. And what you know here is she's not going to be eligible for a spousal benefit because her own benefit is significantly higher than half of his. So that leads us to 70, 2033. If she waits all the way out to age 70, her delayed retirement credits, 24%. So her $2,400 jumps up to just under $3,000, $2,976. And from a spousal benefit, it's zero. Delayed retirement credits never apply to anything other than the worker's own record. So it's laying out these different chunks, you know, of data per person. And what I hope you're getting from these sessions, you know, the expectation is not that you're going to do this, you know, as part of your normal work day. If you prefer tools, there are tools. Maybe you have them already. And I prefer Social Security's tools. And I actually prefer to just do this by hand so that I'm really following what's going on with each individual person in the party. And it's more about knowing there is so much behind all of, not the calculations, but the benefit, and being able to secure a Social Security benefit for each person. And so, you know, knowing that, Richard, you know, calm down, you get your benefit. You know, just don't claim early or wait till 70. Mary Ann, you're not going to get a spousal benefit. You made enough where you do better on your own record. And with Sally being the dependent ex-spouse, Sally, you are going to get a benefit. Don't care what's in the divorce decree. If it said you're not entitled to a Social Security, yes, you are. Go see Social Security. You know, it's really more about helping your clients navigate through this very, you know, this labyrinth of complexity and being confident in your answers. It was interesting. I talked to an advisor the other day and he asked me, what if I gave them wrong advice? What if they come back? And it happened to be a situation where the clients retired early and they drew Social Security early. So they locked in their lowest benefit at age 62 or 62 in some number of months. And remember back to the first session, the decisions are the client's decisions to make. But where this advisor had a conversation with Richard was about what is the damage to the portfolio if you don't claim? Because this guy was just fed up. He just quit his job. Well, sometimes that happens. You know, the plan said he wasn't going to claim until 67 or 66 in some number of months. He quit anyway. Well, you have to adapt. And it's just helpful to know and to see the interaction of the information and the calculations versus what your clients ultimately decide to do. Okay, but that being said, we are going to calculate one more thing. Now, let's look back. You remember Barbara and Zoe from last time. And by the way, they're getting divorced, all these couples, this session, and next session, you know, one of them is going to die. Very important to get your arms around is WEP and GPO. So remember that WEP is the elimination, windfall elimination that applies to the worker's benefit. So somebody who has a hybrid career, they've got Social Security earnings, they have their 40 credits, they've got a PIA, but they also have a pension, an uncovered pension sitting out there. Their Social Security statement cannot reflect that information. All it can show you is their earnings history, uncovered wages, but they have to put them together and it needs to be done in a tool. GPO, on the other hand, covers the spousal and ex-spousal benefits. So if the spouse or ex-spouse has their own pension, and we'll talk about, you know, Massachusetts teachers, and I think it's Maine, the teachers who work for the state, the teachers, public schools, and they get a pension, but it's in lieu of Social Security. Well, they think they can get a spousal or an ex-spousal benefit, and they may, but it's first going to be reduced by GPO. And the reduction is always 2/3 of the state or public pension amount. So going back to Barbara and Zoe. So Barbara and Zoe had plans. They were going to move to Florida. This is the couple that was going to move to Florida. So they were married for 7 years, but their marriage ended in divorce. They had planned to retire June of 2031 when Zoe finishes up her school year, and she would have claimed Social Security just a few months early. But now all the plans need to be separate, right? Because they're divorced and each is going to figure out their own Social Security. Zoe will still get her state pension that could reduce her Social Security payment. But what do they need to, you know, this is the hard thing when you've been working with clients who have intertwined all their plans and, you know, then they unravel. So what do they need to think about individually and how do you help them think about that? Well, let's look at Barbara first. You know, is there any reason why Barbara should wait until July of 2031 to collect her benefit? That was the plan, but now should she wait that long or should she wait till she's 70? Will she be now eligible for an ex-spousal benefit claim on Zoe? So let's look at Barbara first. And so this page in your worksheets, look at Barbara, and I'll go back to her numbers in a minute, but look at her options. So look at her FRA, which is March of 2029, on 7/1/2030. What should her benefit be if she waits, you know, and then will she? That's a different story, but let's get the numbers first. And then at age 70. So let's see what's happening there. And then what are her options for her ex-spousal benefit? And then what should you talk to Barbara about? So take a minute and come up with your numbers here. And there's the data. Okay, other than that, there's one bigger calculation for Barbara on that 7/1/2031. You actually did it last time. So the answers are, her FRA is $3,000. If she claimed in her original date, she's claiming 28 months of a delay. So she gets an 18.6% delayed retirement credit on her benefit amount. So that'd be $3,500. Or if she waits just a little longer till March of 2032, she gets a 24% permanent increase, or $3,700. Her spousal benefits, nothing as a spouse, nothing as an ex-spouse. She was the higher earner, and she will receive way more than half of Zoe's, $400. And importantly, she's not a qualifying ex anyway. And I hope you saw that right away. They've only been married 7 years before the divorce went through. So nothing's going to apply to either of them on ex-spousal benefits. You have to meet that first gate first. And things to talk about. And again, I'll put these are in your notes somewhere. When single, the individuals only have their own benefits to rely on. So, if Barbara can keep working and wait until 70 to claim, that could be a good strategy, but it's always this fine balance between portfolio and amount coming from Social Security to pay the bills. So that's what to think about there. Zoe's situation is going to be both more complicated and less complicated. And I know we're coming right up to the top of the hour. So let me just let you know, you can work these out on your own, but just so you know, with Zoe, when she's claiming just a few months before her FRA, she gets a tiny reduction. So for Zoe, her plan may still work fine because the biggest thing she has going for her is that pension. And she's just going to get a little bit of boost from Social Security from her own $800 PIA. But WEP is $500. So it's just a huge reduction. Bottom line, it doesn't really matter what Zoe does. The difference between 293 and 372, waiting all the way till 70, maybe yes, maybe no. But she could wait and get an extra almost $100 a month if she wanted to. But her ex-spousal benefits, nothing. She won't get anything. She's not eligible. They weren't married long enough. So that's the biggest scoop, is really knowing and understanding and listening to every one of those details of, did they meet the rules? Who qualifies on whom? And the higher earner never loses any benefits because others are claiming on him or her. So with that, everyone, let me say a big thank you. Kathleen, do you want to chime in with anything here at the end?
Trying to start my video. There we go. Thank you so much, Marcia. We really appreciate you being here to share your wisdom and knowledge with us. I think there were just a couple of questions in the chat that maybe perhaps weren't answered. One person asked, what steps do you recommend if the Social Security site reflects zero earnings in 2021 for a worker?
I would wait another month. Was there some reason that the W-2 was delayed? And if it's a mistake, then the person should contact Social Security, give them another month and just say, hey, my earnings are missing. It might be just a timing thing because it is pretty early in the tax year.
Perfect, thank you. And then Tatiana, do you mind resharing the deck one more time in the chat? It looks like a couple people may have not received it. And just a reminder to everybody, please fill out the survey. The SurveyMonkey survey is in the chat as well. And let's see. One person asked, could you please explain how you got the $500 WEP reduction?
Yeah, I partly made it up, but
Okay.
It's based on the table that I included in last session's WEP table. It's about the right amount, the magnitude of what someone would be subjected to, but there are tons of rules around it. So I had to give you a number just to make the scenario work out.
Okay, perfect. And I know we're at time, so if there are other questions that we weren't able to get to today, Marcia's email address is on the slides, and she's been very generous with her time, and I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any follow-up questions that people had. Just a reminder, our last session will be on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. So if anyone wants to wear green and celebrate, I'm not sure if you can tell, but Kathleen Keneally is a little bit of an Irish name. So looking forward to that. But we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks. And thank you again to Marcia, and everybody have a great rest of your week.
Bye. Thanks, Kathleen.
Bye.
The communications will be coming via constant contact.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Kathleen.
Of course.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.